this is Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. And I just wanted to talk to you tonight about recent events, what happened, and what Congress is planning to do about it. I think most of you know how proud I've always been to be an American and to be part of this great country. And one of the things that's really a birthright of American citizens is our democracy. And one part that I'm especially proud of that is the peaceful transition of government. In fact, it was noted by foreign powers when John Adams was in the presidency and he lost. And shocking everyone, he just went home. And Thomas Jefferson became our next president. Likewise, one of the proudest moments I remember in thinking about this country and our democracy is actually ironic because it's an election that didn't turn out how I wanted it to. It's the Bush v. Gore election. And as many of you remember, the Florida ballots were contested, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And yet when the Supreme Court decided that Bush was the winner, it was actually Al Gore, in his capacity as President of the Senate, who certified that election, thus ensuring a peaceful transition of our government. Something that's been uninterrupted until now, except for the Civil War since 1789. And so, as some of you may know, I'm a history major, and I was so proud to arrive on the Hill on January 6th to perform my constitutional duty as a member of Congress and certify the election. And many of you were probably wondering what this was all about, because usually this is just a pro forma issue. The Senate and the House meet together in a joint session, and then the Vice President, acting in his capacity as the President of the Senate, reads the roll call of states in alphabetical order. And as they go through that, they talk about the electoral count and certify each state and then the election. And so we met, and the day on January 6th was a little bit different. As the Vice President began the roll call, we got to Arizona. And there was a objection raised by at least one member of the House and one member of the Senate, which sent us out of the joint session and into debate on that objection. So the Senate went to their chamber. The House, we remained in ours, and we went into debate. As that was happening, as I was sitting in the House chamber, I began to get reports on my phone. I heard that Cannon, the House office building where members have their offices across the street from the Capitol, was being evacuated. I then heard that there were crowds amassing and gathering at the Capitol, and that the Vice President had been evacuated from the Senate chamber. Shortly thereafter, I watched Nancy Pelosi, our Speaker, evacuated from our chamber. And then the doors were shut and locked. We attempted to continue the debate. That became impossible as crowds gathered and started banging on the doors. And so we were told to get out the gas masks in case we had to egress through tear gas. So I helped other members tear open the packages. I showed them how to put a gas mask on in the event we would need them, told them not to put it on just yet, that we would know when we had to. And then we were told that we had to get down, because as they had barricaded the door, as the glass was breaking, they were worried that an active shooter was going to get into the chamber. And as I was on the floor, I heard other members making calls home, afraid that that would be the last call that they ever made. So I called my husband, I told him I was okay, and at that point, we had a safe egress. And so I told him I had to go, and as we were getting ready to leave the chamber, I noticed that a colleague of mine, Representative Jayapal, who had just had knee surgery and was using a cane, was having a little bit of trouble, and I said, "Can I give you a hand?" And she said yes. So I helped her down the stairs as her knee was all but buckling, but she grimly went on. And so as we were doing that, we had said to several people, "You can go ahead of us if you want," because we were a little bit slow. And the members behind us declined, and it turned out because they were following us as we were taking everyone to the secure location. And we were concerned because we were worried around every corner that we might find the mob. And I was told later that members of that mob had zip ties and were wearing body armor and were looking to take prisoners, members of Congress. But we made it to the secure location, and then in an act that I think shows the bravery of so many members of this body, members who had really been traumatized as we were holed up in the chamber by a mob of domestic terrorists, a mob who was violently trying to overthrow our ability to certify the elections. They went back hours later, back into that very chamber, so we could finish the debate and certify the elections. And so I'm coming to you now to talk a little bit about how we're going forward. We're in trying times right now. I think many of you know I've been working ceaselessly to bring this country together, to unite our country, to do everything I can to reach across the aisle, to make arguments that I think all Americans care about, to talk about how the president, when I impeached him the first time, was using Russian intelligence that our American intelligence agencies have said was incorrect to try to force a foreign power, Ukraine, to dig up dirt on his opponent, Joe Biden, and undermine our democratic elections. I talked about how the president was refusing to read his briefing book on Russian bounties and refusing to hold the Russians accountable. I've talked about how I thought he had failed in his duties as commander-in-chief when he called our service members and veterans suckers and losers. Again and again and again, I've reached out on things that I care very deeply about. And not just on issues of national security, but issues of coronavirus and taking care of this country during a crisis. And so now we've come to this moment. Now we've come to a moment where we had armed members of a mob incited by the president, militias that the President of the United States called to the Capitol to try to ensure that Congress could not certify the election and to ensure that we could not have a peaceful transfer of power. So other than the Civil War, for the first time since 1789, we will not have a peaceful transition of power. We will, however, have a transition of power on January 20th, and Joe Biden will be our next president. But I also wanted to talk to you about the fact that this president needs to be removed, and we need to ensure that he can't run for office again. We need to ensure that he doesn't have access to intelligence. We need to make sure of that because I believe this president will just use that for his personal gain. And we need to make sure that all of those people who are complicit with this president, who aided and abetted him in his drive to overturn the election results, the results that the people had voted on, that they are held accountable to. So tonight, and here in Washington, I will be going to the floor to vote on the 25th Amendment resolution. I'll be voting to say that the president does not have the capacity to discharge his duties. I think he already should have resigned given his recent actions, but he's not. And yet in order to enact the 25th Amendment, we need the vice president. he has indicated he is not going to act. So that being the case, I likely will be voting on an article of impeachment tomorrow. And it's just one, and it's very clear. Incitement of insurrection. And it reads in part that in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States. And in all this, President Trump gravely endangered the security of the United States and its institutions of government. He threatened the integrity of the democratic system, interfered with the peaceful transition of power, and imperiled a co-equal branch of government. He therefore betrayed his trust as president to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. I believe I've done everything I can to unite this country. And for all of those who refuse to participate in this democracy, who refuse to see power turned over peacefully, who refuse to heed the will of the people, as we do in a democracy, we are now on different sides of this line. And this line has been drawn, and I'm going to do everything in my power to see that our democracy prevails. Because we can't have a democracy if we have a president who incites violence to overturn the results. We can't have a democracy if too many members of our police force and our military are acting to overturn it and undermine it. We can't have a democracy if members of Congress are actively helping the president overturn the election results. And so not only do I intend to see that the president is removed and never runs for office again and doesn't have access to classified material, I also intend to see that those members of Congress who embedded him, those members of Congress who had groups coming through the Capitol that I saw on January 5th, a reconnaissance for the next day, those members of Congress that incited this violent crowd, those members of Congress that attempted to help our president undermine our democracy. I'm going to see that they're held accountable, and if necessary, ensure that they don't serve in Congress. And so I thank all of you for your support. I thank everyone who's reached out over the last couple days to check in, make sure I'm doing okay, make sure my family's okay. I sincerely appreciate it. Because I know this is a scary time. I know a lot of you were concerned and scared about where this country's headed. But I invite you to join me in my faith in this country. My faith that democracy will continue to prevail. That our children are going to enjoy the same freedoms and rights that we enjoy today. Because I'm going to work with everything I have to ensure that that's possible, and I know you will too. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me, and take care.